Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Will Rouse. I'm the Executive Chairman of Structural Monitoring Systems, and I welcome you to the annual general meeting of shareholders of the company. As it is past the appointed time of 10 a.m. Australian Western Standard Time and a quorum is present, I declare the meeting open. Please note that after the formal part of the AGM, there will be a shareholder presentation and we will answer many of the questions received on progress and strategy. We've actually released this on the ASX platform this morning. Today's meeting is being held online via the Computershare meeting platform. This allows shareholders, proxies and guests to attend the meeting virtually. All attendees can watch a live webcast of the meeting. In addition, shareholders and proxies have the ability to ask questions and submit votes. Online attendees can submit questions at any time. To ask a question, select the Q&A icon. Type your question into the text box. Once you have finished typing, press hit and please hit the send button. Please note that while you can submit questions from now on, I will not address them until the relevant time in the meeting. Please also note that your questions may be moderated, or if we receive multiple questions on one topic, amalgamated together. To ask a verbal question, please follow the instructions written below the broadcast. Voting today will be conducted by way of a poll on all items of business. I will shortly open voting for all resolutions. As explained in the notice of meeting, holders of CHESS Depository Interests, CDIs, are invited to attend and speak at the meeting but are not entitled to vote personally at the meeting. In order to have a vote cast at the meeting on their behalf, CDI holders must have completed, signed and returned the CDI voting instruction form so that CHESS Depository Nominees Pty can then vote the underlying shares on your behalf. CDI holders who have ticked box B and appointed themselves or a proxy will be able to vote in the live poll. If you are eligible to vote, once voting opens, press the vote icon and all resolutions will be activated with voting options. To cast your vote, simply select one of the options. There is no need to hit a submit or enter button as the vote is automatically recorded. You will receive a vote confirmation and notification on your screen. You can change your vote up until the time I declare voting closed. I now declare voting open on all items of business. I can also advise that the company has received valid proxies as per the slide on the monitor. Some of you would be familiar with the board, but for those who are not, may I introduce board directors Sam Wright, Steve Foreman and Bryant McClarty. A representative from William Buck, our company auditors, Amar Nathwani, is also present. We also have on the call General Counsel Terry Walsh, CFO Gary Elwell, Chief Technical Officer Trevor Lynch Staunton, VP Global Sales and Marketing Rich Pudier, and we have apologies from Dr. Dennis Roach and from Brian Wall, CEO of AEM. I will assume you have read the notice of meeting which has been circulated to all shareholders. So with the permission of the meeting, I do not intend to read the notice in full. The first item on the agenda is to receive and consider the annual financial report of the company for the financial year ended 30th of June 2021, together with the declaration of the directors' report, the remuneration report and the auditor's report. Moving to the resolutions to be put to the shareholders today. Resolution 1, reappointment of Director William Rouse, i.e. myself, to consider and if thought fit pass the following resolution as an ordinary resolution that William Rouse, who retires by rotation in accordance with Article 25.2 of the Articles of Association, ASX Listing Rule 14.4, and, being eligible, offers himself for reappointment, be reappointed as a director of the company. Resolution 2, reappointment of auditors, to consider and, if thought fit, pass the following resolutions as an ordinary resolution. That Elderton Audit UK Pty Limited, having previously consented in writing to act in the capacity of auditor, be reappointed as auditor of the company from the conclusion of this meeting until the conclusion of the next accounts meeting of the company, pursuant to section 489, subsection 4A of the UK Companies Act 2006. The directors are hereby authorised to fix the remuneration of the company's auditors. Resolution 3, additional placement capacity. To consider and, if thought fit, to pass the following resolution as a special resolution. That, for the purpose of Listing Rule 7.1A, the directors are authorised to issue equity securities totalling up to 10% of the issued capital of the company at the time of issue, calculated over the period prescribed under Listing Rule 7.1A2, and otherwise on the terms and conditions set out in the explanatory statement. Resolution 4, approval of future issuance under the Employee Incentive Plan, EIP, to consider and, if thought fit, to pass the following resolution as an ordinary resolution. That, for the purposes of ASX Listing Rule 7.2, Exception 13, and for all other purposes, approval is given for the company to issue equity securities, including the issue of shares pursuant to the conversion of any equity securities under its employee incentive plan, the terms and conditions of which are summarised in the explanatory statement. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our discussion on the items of business. In a couple of minutes, I will close the voting system. Sam, are there any questions on the resolutions?
No.
Please ensure that you have cast your vote on all resolutions. I will now pause to allow you time to finalise those votes. Voting is now closed. The final results of voting will be released to the stock exchange later today. That concludes the formal business of the meeting, and I declare the meeting closed. We will now provide an update on the progress and strategy and answer the questions emailed prior to the meeting, as well as those submitted today. But before we do that, I just want to elaborate on the reason for the trading halt that we're in at the moment. In response to feedback and to avoid any perceived conflict of interest, SMS has terminated the underwriting agreement with MAC Equity Partners. An announcement will be released shortly, as well as a replacement prospectus with a new timetable. So now, Sam, we'll go on to the presentation. I'll just talk briefly to this slide, but most of the questions are going to be answered by either Rich Poudier or Trevor Lynch-Thornton. So what we've attempted to do with this first slide that you can see is to summarise the very complicated process that we've been in for some time that leads us towards the STC approval for the GoGo Wi-Fi application. And we've attempted to simplify this as much as possible. But if you read through this slide, you'll see that we are very, very close to receipt of the approval. Most of the questions that we have received are around the STC process, and so we'll answer those questions shortly, and they'll clarify anything that's not well understood in this slide. The next two slides pertain to AEM, so perhaps I'll give an update on AEM after we've dealt with questions around the STC. And the third slide pertains to the appointment of Dr. Dennis Roach to the SMS executive team. As you can see from Dennis's bio, he's globally recognised as an expert in structural health monitoring. And following his retirement from Sandia Labs, we took the opportunity to appoint Dennis to the SMS executive in a consulting capacity and as an expert resource as we go on to develop further solutions around the sensor business. Okay, so I'll now turn back over to Sam. Sam, if you'd like to run through the questions and pass them through to either Rich or Trevor to answer as appropriate.
Sure, thanks, Will. The first question I have received here states, Wi-Fi approval, how long does it take to do the install and will this be handled by airline operators? I.e., does SMN just sell the sensors as a supplier? Trev or Rich, can you answer that one, please? If you just take you off mute. Trev, thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Sam. So, the question on how long does it take to install the sensors? The first install took a fairly long amount of time, about 24 man hours to install on the first installation. The kit has since been distilled down to only critical sensors, and it will be less time to install subsequent ones due to experience and some lessons learned during that installation. As far as, so SMS provides the sensors. Yes, we are the seller, as well as we provide training to the airline customers or the MRO providers.
Thanks, Trev. I've got another question here. What is the status of the generic issue paper mentioned in previous announcements? This was due to be released shortly after the expected Wi-Fi application approval.
And so the FAA has finished and completed the generic issue paper, and that's what it is. It's a generic issue paper. So any subsequent applications for a structural health monitoring approval to the FAA would then go back to the FAA. They would do a minor revision to that generic issue paper so that it would be specific for that particular application. Most of the changes would just be replacing a few keywords within it, and then they would issue that generic issue paper. They plan on continuing that process of revising that generic issue paper for probably at least the next 3 to 5 structural health monitoring applications. It's then they would provide standard guidance, perhaps a TSO, that would be as necessitated for future applications, depending on demand, etc. So for now, we only expect them to continue to revise that generic issue paper, and it should be quite short to do so.
Thanks, Trev. This one probably for Rich, if you can answer it, I'm not sure. What is the planned revenue model? Is the plan still to obtain a license and cost of sensor sale?
So to answer that question, yes, that's still the current plan, but we are reevaluating the market appetite for that revenue model after the STC is issued. As we've stated, we've been in contact with many airlines over the last few years about their level of interest in CVM. There still remains a very high level of interest. And when it comes to pricing and modeling the revenues on that, we clearly are focused on the existing model that we've talked about for a long time, which is point of sale and some licensing. But we do need to discuss that with the airlines. Things are changing in their environment with the existing financial situations at airlines. So that's going to be a fluid and dynamic situation as we go forward. So we'll just evaluate it as time goes on. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Probably another question for you. What is the level of interest for SHM from airlines? And is the cost of our sensors, sale and licensing, viewed by airlines as extravagant or a necessary cost?
Sorry, I'm trying to find my unmute button here. So as I said, the level of interest remains extremely high. We've done a very good job, I think, of getting out to some major U.S. airlines as a primary target initially. And with discussions that we've had with management and engineering individuals, everyone is very enthusiastic about the technology. So that's a very good sign for us. And as with any new and novel technology within the airline industry, airlines kind of reserve and be cautious with respect to jumping ahead, if you will, before certification comes, because they recognize the time it takes and the efforts it takes to get certification. So with that, there's a very high level interest in the technology, but they recognize we have a major hurdle to get through with the certification. but I'm very confident that once we do get the certification, that level of interest remains high, and we will have a lot of people interested to further discuss, where we go from there. On the commercial side of it, again, we're very focused right now on the Wi-Fi, as we've stated in the past. That is going to remain our focus. And so when we talk about the cost and the benefits to the airlines for other applications, we're not jumping ahead immediately to try to figure all those out. We will be talking very extensively with the airlines for the Wi-Fi application initially. And that's been the plan, and we're going to stick with that plan coming out of the box. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. I've got one here for you, Trevor. Has all data been submitted for Delta Airlines APB AMOC? And are we waiting on this approval along with the Wi-Fi?
Thanks. So the aft pressure bulkhead for the 737 application and alternate means of compliance, the AMOC, that had been proposed through Delta Airlines. Delta Airlines received feedback directly from the FAA after their submission that we were encouraged to go with the Boeing approach, and Boeing as an OEM would then offer that support, and they have engaged with us. We've had recent meetings, multiple meetings already on the pressure bulkhead application, and now that Boeing is engaged with SMS, they've offered their support in qualifying the aft pressure bulkhead application within 2022. So we have engaged with them. They've provided specifications that they require. We are currently revising specification documents for them and submitting back to it, along with qualification plans and procedures, and expect to start work with some of that testing shortly.
Fantastic, thanks. Another one, Trev. Given Dennis Roach's recent retirement and the closing of Sandia's test lab, where will physical testing be achieved for future applications?
Been fortunate enough to work closely with Dennis, and he's given me a lot of heads up on his pending and his departure with Sandia. So we've had the ability to develop some alternate options here. With the Wi-Fi application, we used Delta Engineering's lab. We also have the ability within AGM to test the coupons as well as most of all environmental conditions. And we also have provisions in place to conduct testing at the NAIR, the National Institute of Aviation Research at Wichita State University. And that's with communication with Dennis Roach and a good relationship he has with them.
Yeah, thanks, Trev. We might just skip forward a couple of slides to that one on Dennis Roach and new appointments. This question sort of relates to that. And you've answered it very well already, Trevor, about Dennis's role with the company going forward. And a second part of the question, which maybe Will can answer, have we begun the process of searching for a new CEO with aviation experience? And if yes, what stage are we at? Maybe Will, do you want to kick that off?
Yeah, sure. We're actively interviewing for that role, and also for directors to join the board with a specific aviation background. I was hoping to be able to announce something today in that regard, specifically with regard to a non-executive director. We're pretty close on that appointment. It's not quite there, but we hope to announce something in that regard in the next 2 to 4 weeks. And if we can secure the services of the individual that I'm talking to, that'll give us a huge strategic advantage going forward. The guy that we're talking to is very highly placed within the aviation industry. So yeah, the answer is we're out there searching and interviewing.
Excellent. And anything to add on Dennis's role, or yeah, Trevor's covered that off?
Nothing to what I've already added, but I'd encourage people to read his bio. If you read him, you'll see that he is a seriously smart guy who really understands this field. So he brings a lot of expertise to the company and will be a huge resource to the team at AEM as well as to the team in SNS.
Thank you. Perhaps if we go back to the previous slide, there's a question here just regarding AEM, the new facilities, and can you provide an update, please?
Sure. Well, I was hoping Brian was going to join the call. I think he's had a technical issue. So I'll give you all a bit of an update. It's been a pretty busy time at AEM for the last 3 months. They've had to digest the Eagle acquisition at the same time as moving a manufacturing facility. Not easy. Overall, they are just about online. Well, they're online with their manufacturing in the new facility. The admin staff are still working remotely, but they should all be on site within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Production is pretty much back up to normal capacity now. It was depleted there for a while. The Eagle acquisition, we've shipped our first orders that were manufactured out of AEM in January. So it's been a process of digesting the inventory, getting that on site. There's been a big effort by the R&D team to familiarise themselves with the technology, to ensure that all the manufacturing processes would result in products that conform to all of the aviation standards. So overall, AEM's had a pretty busy time. In terms of financial performance, the sales have been a little softer than budget, but EBITDA is actually slightly ahead of budget, around 19%. That's come from expense control, some rebates associated with the heavy R&D spend. We've got 23 engineers now working in the R&D division. But more encouragingly, we're seeing a very strong order book for the next quarter. So we're expecting to see a pretty strong Q3 and that momentum to be maintained for the rest of the calendar year. And that's coming from both the Eagle products being shipped, the new radio product that we've only shipped the first prototype in December, but we think that's got real legs, that product. So it will take time for the acceptance testing, but we think in the latter part of 22 we're going to start to see some pretty strong orders out of that line. And then generally speaking, the aviation industry is recovering post-COVID, and so we are expecting a tailwind from that. So overall, AEM is performing well, and we're expecting a strong calendar 22 from them.
Thanks, Will. I've got a question here directed to Rich. I'm not sure whether we can answer it or not, but I'll put it to you anyway. It states, to maximise earnings from CVM, will the board consider providing airlines with payment plans?
That's, everything is, I guess, possible. We're just going forward. We're going to have to evaluate, obviously, the situation, risk assessment, if you will, of the operator, the financial conditions, and other factors will play into that. So everything would be considered going forward. But I think our primary model is to not have payment plans and basically have a point of sale prior to delivery of the sensors to the operator.
Okay. I've got a pretty broad question here that says, what is our commercialisation plan for CVM over the next 2 to 3 years? I think Rich, you want to cover that one? We sort of discussed that earlier.
Obviously, I'm not going to get into too many details, and I think we've addressed this in the past on some of the releases that we've done without getting into any forecasting. we have certainly indicated what our plan is with respect to that, which is basically to stay focused on the Wi-Fi antenna application, to identify those airlines that may be the potential user of the CDM for that application, as well as to expand upon that application into other Wi-Fi antenna applications. Considering the many, many years that we've been patient and waiting for the technology to come out, it's going to be overwhelming, or potentially could be, if you just start spreading your wings too far and apart. So we want to stay focused on that particular application, and then that will drive future discussions as to where the next application will be, and then how do we start projecting and do some financial projections from that. But at this point, until we get the STC, that's going to be our focus. So I hope that answers the question as best I can.
Sam, can I just add that, part of the reason for the capital raise is to allow us, or give us the funding to allow us to build a team so that we can get this business going.
Thanks, Will. I'll give the shareholders an opportunity to get any further questions in, but we've answered everything that we can. Feel free to, if you do have further questions, to send them through to Steve Fawn, our Investor Relations Director. This meeting has been recorded and will be uploaded to the SMS website. I'll just give it a further opportunity. There doesn't appear to be any further questions. Will, I'll hand it back to you to officially close the meeting.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for attending today. And with that, I declare the meeting closed.